Hi and welcome to the latest episode of the Leadership Untitled podcast with me, Rob Moores. This is the show where I bring guests in who are experts in the field of coaching or leadership or both or whatever it might be, to help you guys as leaders and budding leaders, whether it's first line, middle, senior, C-suite leaders, really focus on the skill of leadership and the skill of coaching. My guest this week is Thomas Erikson, best-selling author of Surrounded by Idiots, a book based on the colour communication styles. Red, blue, green and yellow, which you guys might well be familiar with. It's really interesting, and this conversation is equally interesting when we look at the dynamics that play inside those different colour energies and outside of those as well, which influence the way in which we communicate and behave with each other all the time, and really begin to highlight some of the issues that we may have with other people and within our work, but also on the challenges of leadership and how we define what a leader is. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Thomas to the show. Hi Thomas, welcome to the Leadership Untitled podcast. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I am great. It's a sunny morning. It's snowy and sunny, and the spring is on, I guess, as we in Sweden call it, the April weather. It comes and it goes, kind of, but I can sense the spring.
You can sense it.
We're
We're struggling with that in the UK at the minute. I know you said you were in London last week and it was raining every day. That's been kind of the last 6 months. I don't think we can sense anything other than rain at the minute.
well, who's surprised really? But you know, it's a lovely place. I love it there. So never mind. Let's move on.
That's absolutely
the
quickly.
weather.
So what I like to do at this point is just kind of tell my audience what it was that what the reason was rather that I invited you along, asked you to come on the episode, and I'm just well, there's a number of reasons. For years now, I've loved the color energy side of things when it comes to psychometrics. I was introduced to it years ago, looking at the Discovery Insights surveys when I was working for some big corporates like Sky and TalkTalk. And since then I've done loads of those different ones. I'm actually now use one called Clarity 4D, so I love that energy thing, and one of my pieces of energy from that and why I love it so much is kind of it's almost like a fight back against when it's done badly, when people come away from it thinking they are a single color and then the kind of aims aren't there for them anymore. So there's that side of it, love it. And then obviously connecting that to you, your series of books, starting with Surrounded by Idiots, really focuses on that DESA system, that the different colours and characters. And one of my favourite books, that alongside your other book around bad leaders and lazy employees, because obviously from the leaders' point of view, absolutely love that. And the third kind of reason is that because of that, I've kind of built my own framework that builds upon that does this coaching style piece in the middle of it, that kind of says, you know what, all these color energies, we can be all of these things, and the best way to figure out where the person in front of you is in that moment is to ask them and listen and build a relationship with them. So that's kind of the reason I was so excited to get you on, because your books are just amazing. And really tie into what I'm looking at and what my audience looks at. What I'm really interested in is, how did you get into all of that to start with? Because people will look at your Amazon page and it's full of books on this topic in different areas. Absolutely love it. How did you get started in it?
How did I get started? Well, there's a couple of different stories depending on which perspective I could take here. When it comes to the Surrounded by Idiots book about, I mean, let's call it the main book about the colors, the basics, if you like. It's actually, I was working with the four color system for a couple of decades as a management consultant, and I was also writing thrillers at night. And I published 6 thrillers, which no one has ever heard about. So that's that. Obviously not I wrote for 20 years without getting published. Obviously not a natural talent. Let's have that stated. But
let's put those links to those books in the show notes afterwards, so people buy the thrillers as well.
If you can find them still. But anyways, the point is this: I got this idea. If people, when I was running, management team workshops and leadership trainings and so on, I worked with a lot of top managers, and they quite kind of fancy the four color system, the disc profile, because it's easy to wrap your head around it. It's easy to sort of apply it when you do it the right way, as you just mentioned. People are usually not one color; you're usually some kind of combination, which is, of course, the truth. But so I went to my then publisher and I said, I want to write a book about communication, about behavioral styles and personalities. And they said, well, what are you talking about? You write thrillers. And I said, well, it's about four colors. It's going to be called Surrounded by Idiots, I said. And I showed them the cover of the book. And I said, this is the cover. It's my own design. Actually, I came up with that myself. And they looked at me with horror in their eyes and said, this is the stupidest thing you ever came up with. You know, Firstly, it's an ugly cover. It's a stupid title. People are going to get angry. Scrap the whole idea. That's how it started, ish, kind of, because I was never good at taking advice when it comes to I can't do this and I can't do that. I'm a little bit un-Swedish in that matter. So for me, that was sort of a uh, I don't know. I just had to do it. So I was shopping around at all the publishing houses in Sweden, and they all basically said the same thing. I was the idiot, really. Now I'm a genius, but who knows? Uh, so I had to publish it myself. So as a management consultant, I drove around with boxes of the book in the back of my car. I had no budget for anything, no marketing, no PR, no nothing. So that's how it started, actually. But I really believed in the idea. So I was forcing the book onto my clients, and they looked at it and said, I said, take 10 books for each and every one participant in this workshops, let's say. And they said, what is this, a book about idiots? No, please. Well, take 5, take 2, take a book. That's how it started.
Mm.
But I realized slowly but surely I am onto something. So I didn't actually give in because I'm kind of stubborn that way. If I believe in something, I don't fold very easily. Sometimes I keep on too long in the wrong direction. That's for sure. I've done that as well. And then we got the book into the airports of Sweden, and then it just boomed like this. And that was the real confirmation. Everybody needs to understand this because all of a sudden the public is reading about these four colors and how to use it and how to frame yourself and how to adapt to different personality styles and all of these things. So for me, that was really good kind of a confirmation. This is not just about consulting or talking to leaders or maybe sales reps and so on. It's actually it can affect everybody if you're interested in human behavior. If you
Mm.
really are into decreasing the number of misunderstandings and let's say conflicts in your life, then you can have a good use for this kind of tool, I would say. So I think that's good, actually.
Well, I'm glad you persevered with it because I think it's funny you mentioned about the airports in Sweden. Um, a friend and I were talking about this. Joe Wright, my friend, who's got her own book out, and it's when you go into these train stations and airports and certain books because that's where people tend to look for books more than anywhere nowadays, apart from maybe Amazon, and it does jump out at you, and it makes you at the very least go, "What the hell is that about?" So you at least pick it
Exactly.
up and have a
What the
look.
hell? Most people pick it up and then probably put it down but still, I mean, the title is of course it's a bit of a marketing thing. I understand that, and then I've sort of been riding on that idea for a couple of more books, and the recognition is what it is because we all been in that situation, feeling surrounded by idiots. It's not very unique at all. But it works. Understanding, and it's easy to go, very use cliches here but I really believe we need to put some more attention to how we are acting around each other and actually showing more interest in other people. I don't want to sound like some sort of prophet here, but as the world is evolving, what I think in the wrong direction in too many areas, let's say, I really think we should pay attention to each other a little bit more. And this could be one easy way to do it, to understand the people in your closest surroundings. If you can learn how to understand other people, and if you understand yourself, and if you understand what they see when they meet you, how are you perceived? I know
Mm.
you're brilliant, you're absolutely fantastic, but we all are in a way. Still, we can't get along. So, who's fooling who here? We need to pay more attention. So, if I can just contribute, 0.5%, I would be happy.
Mm. I absolutely think you are, and I think actually, you say it's a marketing thing, but I think when I've kind of explained that, so I obviously do leadership coaching. I also do some leadership workshops, and when I explain that idea, they kind of go, well, we've all thought that at some point. We've all said either externally or internally, oh, why am I surrounded by idiots? And what I particularly love about the book is, well, one of the things I like about the book in that essence is where it says, and those with lots of red energy think they're surrounded by the most idiots of all.
Yes,
And that really does
the
ring true.
idiot border is very tight around those people. Most people are quite stupid, aka they're too slow, which is idiotic, right?
That's it.
We can joke about the stereotypes, and it's a bit of a stereotype. I understand that too, but there are people who only shows one color. I mean, red is the color that most people do not understand.
Mhm.
There are people who are red, only red, and nothing but red. About 9.5% of the population in the industrialized world has red as the strongest factor. This task-oriented, extroverted type, dominant type, and fast forward thinker, competitive, result oriented, all of these things. A bit harsh to people around them, but when they get to understand these people, this is also the color that most people claim to be without actually being that color. So it seems like people are a bit scared and at the same time a little bit impressed. So,
Mm.
and then you of course have the notion that about 5% of the population statistically, and we have tens of millions of analysis to base this upon, only show one color. And if that's red, that's 0.5% of people only red. But when you meet one of them, you will notice it. Like my
Mm.
wife, she's only red and nothing. She's like an L, red and nothing else. Every second conversation with her ends with, "Oh, so many words," from her perspective. Why do you have to talk so much? I got it the first time. You weren't in the room. Yeah, I know. I sort of figured it out anyway, because that's also a red perspective. I know everything. And
Yeah.
it's kind of good. When it comes to leadership, that's also a problem, of course. If you believe that you know everything because it feels like it,
Mm.
more red people, the higher up in the hierarchy that you reach. That's also a fact. It's not the same thing as saying red people are the best leaders. It's only saying they have sharper elbows. It's
Mm.
lonely at the top, but they can live with that. If
Mm.
you don't love me, I can sort of I can accept that as a fact. I'm on my way here. So
Mm.
they just keep going, even though people might dislike them quite a lot. So good or bad, who knows?
Well, that's what I like about the Surrounded by the Bad Bosses book, because it throws in this idea, and I think this is really important for those people who've maybe done these surveys and had these sessions and got these color kind of markings for themselves, because it does bring in this idea that there are many other contexts associated with this, leadership being one of them. That's cool. So you're in a team, one of you's got lots of red energy, one of you's got, let's say, lots of green energy. Depending on which one of you is the leader, that can really then change that dynamic completely. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely.
so just tell me about that leadership dynamic, and because I've got it in my head, like if the red energy person was the leader in that instance, that's where we traditionally maybe see that things happen in business. As you mentioned, the further up you go, the more red energy there becomes. But if lots of green energy was leading a team with lots of red energy, that dynamic is suddenly changed, and the way those color energies come out is very different.
It's very different. Red and green, quite the opposite, obviously. It's on the other side of the matrix. Greens are people oriented and introvert and very conflict avert and all of those things. Don't like changes. It's absolutely 180 degrees on the wrong direction compared to reds, or right, depending on who you're asking, obviously. But when it comes to, I mean, this energy is. I mean, if you spend time on LinkedIn every single day, you will, especially you and I, who sort of work in this field, let's call it. So every single day it pops up, spreadsheets of this is the best leader type. You should do
Yeah.
this and don't do that, and don't micromanage, and don't be this, don't be that. And every single day new charts comes there. And I think, well, if I was supposed to follow all of these advices and do's and don'ts, it would totally kill me, because there is no such thing as this is the best kind of leadership. It depends on so many factors, and we know this. That doesn't come as a surprise for anyone. Sometimes you need the red person who says, stands there at the front, points with the full hand, say, "Let's go, let's break some barriers, let's break things, let's just move on, bam, bam, bam." And
Mm.
sometimes because that can be very inspiring, and sometimes you need a yellow type, extroverted but people oriented, who can stand and say, "Yay, you can do it, whoa, way to go, and I believe in you, I trust you. Yes, you're the best team ever." You need that too sometimes when you feel down and very demotivated and so on. Yes, you will also sometimes need a green leader who is patient, who is more looking for stability, taking everything down a notch, listening patiently and really caring about you. How are you? Do you feel stressed? How can I release the burden from your shoulders? We need that too. And we need the blue perspective, introvert, task oriented, the engineers, accountants types, the CFOs of the world, let's call them.
Mhm.
And yes, you need them too, to be precise and detailed and good at follow-ups and actually do the reporting and learning from mistakes and all of these things. Sometimes micromanaging, yes, that is true. To say you should be this, you should be that, it just doesn't add up.
Mm.
It's not how it works. Best would be if you have someone who can play each and every role and all the combinations. Adding on top of that competences, experiences, empathy, IQ, EQ, drivers, let's say motivational factors. Are you there for a theoretical reason, the reason why you do it? Are you there for practical economical reasons? Are you there for finding harmony, or to are you an individualistic person? There's so many dimensions, and no one can say that's the way to go. The only
Mm.
thing I would say is, and I get this question, I guess, once a week: how should a good leader be? Well, he or she needs a lot of imagination. I would say flexibility. But what the heck does that really mean? That would probably be more of the red and yellow types, because they are more flexible.
Mm.
On the contrary, flexibility can also could stir things up. If you're too flexible, if you're too much into novelty, and you get bored by the same routine each and every day and week and month and so on, you will invent new stuff that will only cause stress within your team. So who really knows? I
Mm.
think it's about paying attention and being aware and spending as many percent of your time. Not that you ask this question really, but I get carried away when it comes to these things, because I believe in this. If you spend as much time as possible being a leader
Mhm.
and not a manager, and my definition of a leader is you don't have to produce much work yourself. Don't fall into the specialist slash expert trap, because if you're the best expert, you're in deep trouble, right?
Yeah,
I, I bet you would agree with me on that one.
100%.
Uh, if
I'm
you are a
making a few
specialist, you
notes as
will.
we're doing it.
Yeah, please do. But if you are, and I've been there myself as an ex-banker, an excellent sales representative. I was the best sales guy for years, still leading the sales team. My budget was the highest. It's a silly thing. Instead of developing the other sales guys and girls, I was out there doing business, very good business and very profitable and all of that. But that wasn't leadership. That was
Mm.
sales representing and then reading reports on Sundays. It's a stupid thing. Don't do it. Spend time in the leadership chair.
No, I get it. You can see just behind me, for those watching on YouTube, that's my little coach approach thing in the middle. And you kind of described it beautifully there in terms of, just be more interested in people and listen to people. Negate what that natural preference might be, but also the fact that all these things are absolutely necessary. And I guess, what that leads me to is this idea of nature versus nurture. Because you touched on something before that, that some people will want to be more red or claim to have lots more red energy. And the tool I've been working with recently, it does a great 360 tool where other people fill out the same survey about me. So it comes back with this color energy split based on how I'm perceived, which, you've mentioned perceptions quite a few times as well, which is crucial. And it's completely the opposite of how I see myself, which is, particularly interesting. So it leads to that nature versus nurture. To what degree are we naturally in these different energy pots or combinations of these colors? or to what degree, to your point about flexibility, do we maybe learn those different energies either as we go up an organization or through the people we hang around with or whatever it might be?
That's a huge question. I would say, I mean, the question about nature versus nurture is as old as Freud, I guess. And I think we have come to the psychologists that sort of arm wrestle around this. I mean, scientists are never, they never agree on very much. Actually, when people say the science is clear, I don't know. I have never seen a real field where they actually do agree on even the basics sometimes. Psychology is a complicated science, and some people claim it's not even a science because it's exceptionally hard to replicate one study time and time again. It's really, really hard to get identical results like in physics or in biology or in math or whatever. So therefore, we can only make certain claims and present theories and ideas. That doesn't make it less interesting. It's very interesting.
Mm,
Nature versus nurture. Well, let's say for the sake of argument, it's 50-50. It's actually not 50-50. It's 48, 48. It's some sort of weird X factor in between, which we really don't know anything about. The only way to test this is these twin studies, when you separate identical twins from birth and send them in different directions completely, which is a very cruel way to do science. It has been done in the
mm,
States. They did that many decades ago, and they learned a couple of things. But I would say we have, let's say, half of who we are, half of who I am in my DNA, in my biology, comes from my parents. It's in my DNA. It's also quite strange because I am nothing like my father. I am nothing like my mother. They were both quite green. I have no green whatsoever. I'm terribly sorry to all the greens out there. I love the green factor. I envy it. I have to turn it on.
mm,
I don't have it. I have 2% green, close to nothing. My sister have more of it. We have the same parents, so it can't all be in the DNA.
mhm,
So what else is there to know? Well, then you have, of course, the nurture thing, how I was raised, how my buddies treated me in kindergarten, in first class, and so on, all the way up to the teens. And the teenagers always confused. Still, you and I, we were confused. We were 15, of course, because who knows how the world is really working around us,
mhm,
and finally reaching some kind of adulthood when the frontal lobe closes. That's when we can take smart decisions based on consequential thinking. It happens in girls at the age of 18, 19, and in boys at the age of 23, 25. Don't look at me. Why did Mother Nature, or whatever your beliefs are, do this? I have no idea. But that's actually also why it's so expensive for young men to insure their motorcycles. It's very much based on not so smart decisions all the time.
That in
But
itself's
anyway, no.
interesting.
I know. No, but it's the same thing. If you lock every man up until the age of, I think it's 30 something, the testosterone goes down, and you will get rid of 80%, 90% of all the crimes on the planet. Why is this? I don't know. What do I know? I know nothing about this. I can only read the reports and try to find some interesting stuff in there. But the point is, how we are raised and how we are treated and the environment around us will of course affect us. I
Mm,
am the second child. My sister is the first one. Then again, I should actually be, you know, standing a half a step behind her. But if I may, this might sound a bit strange, but if you would be looking at an alpha in our family, it would actually be me
mhm,
until you meet me and my wife at the same room. Then I will take a step back. But because my sister is much more polite and much more friendly and calm and very, very nice to be around. And I'm much more impatient and so on. According to the sibling theory, the alpha should be the oldest one, but it isn't. So who really knows? Maybe I'm
mm,
just a bad example. But it's a combination. And the more we understand about it, the more we can do. But the thing is this, usually people don't, I mean, self-awareness is a beautiful thing, right? But it's kind of rare. 80% of people, that was actually an interesting study made by Tasha Eurich, an American, I think she's a psychiatrist, maybe a psychologist.
Mhm.
She concluded 80% of people have a bad self-awareness. I think self-awareness is it's like humor. Everybody thinks they have it, right?
Mm.
But you and I, we know they don't. So, but the point I'm trying to make here is when we reach adulthood, we are who we are. We can't change much about that. Now we
Mm.
just have to play with the cards that we were handed, so to
Mm.
speak. So I don't spend too much time. Why did I end up here, and why did I get to be like this and like that? I had to develop who I am and work on me, which I've been doing since my mid 20s something. I didn't start that quite early. I should have started earlier because I think I was a bit of an idiot as a young man. Actually, no, I know I was a bit of an idiot. I try not to be too much of an idiot these days.
But we're all idiots, remember? Surrounded by
Yeah, we're all idiots in someone's story. That is indeed the case.
Well, I love what you said before actually about the green. You actually your words were I turn it on. I have to turn it on now and again, and I use the phrase we have to dial these up now and again, and tying that into leadership. That I think you spot on. There is no such thing as the perfect leader. I have this phrase that I use that to say you're only a great leader if someone remembers you as being so. And that doesn't mean everyone's going to remember you as being so. There are the traits and the characteristics that a leader has, and I think this is the mistake a lot of organizations make, is that we tend to try and then codify all those characteristics and traits, and then we build a leadership development program that tries to teach everybody to be all of those things. But that doesn't necessarily translate into making people feel amazing at work or feeling that you're a great leader. Whereas if you kind of consider how great leaders made you feel, and then you focus all your development of leaders on helping them make other people feel like that, which I think is the right way. However, interestingly, when I combine this with the colours, I did fantastic. It was a few months ago, and I had a room of leaders, and there was a good split between the different colours. And we also had like a charter we created. This is how we want people to feel in the organization. This is awesome. This is amazing. Okay. And then I put them in different corners of the room, so opposite from their own natural color energy or dominant color energy. And I said, right, how are you going to make those people feel the things that you've said are important for them to feel? And the blue were looking at the yellow, and the yellow were looking at the blue, and the green were looking at the red. It was amazing. So much energy going on, writing loads of things down. I went over to the corner where the red energy was looking at the greens, and they had nothing. They said, I have not got a
They had nothing.
clue what I'm going to do. And then the interesting thing is they came back, and those with the dominant green energy had written a massive list for them. This is how I'm going to do it. And the red energy looked at it and went, I don't care about any of that really. Just what's going on?
That's a beautiful example, Rob. I love that. It's excellent, and it's so funny. But the point is probably something like you can't expect someone to completely violate who they are. That's a very unpopular claim I'm going to do now. Some people will never be good leaders. That is just the way it is. I have met thousands of leaders. I have basically coached and mentored people in some kind of no. I have coached and mentored managers. Let me correct myself. Some leaders, some actually not so good. I would say 10% are awesome. They have some sort of instinctive, natural, well, call it talent or just sensitivity to what is needed, and they are flexible, they can cope, and they are enough interested in other people to actually pay attention and do all of these things that are on these charts and so on and so forth. Then you have, I would say, 20% at the bottom who are so bad they should be kicked out and never to return again. They are so damagingly bad, and they are so frustratingly stupid and egotistic, and really, really, they really violate every theory on
Mm,
team spirit and motivation and everything, because they are lousy bosses. They should never be allowed over the threshold again. ever. In the middle, 70% who might be okay. We could cope with them. We can teach them something. We can't change who they really are. It's my notion of this is, and I have pondered this for quite some years. After I wrote Surrounded by Idiots, I wanted, of course, to, well, there was a book between there. And then I wrote Surrounded by Bad Bosses and Lazy Employees. And the reason for this is I was trying to solve what we are talking about now. If we can't change all the leaders into, or managers into really good modern leaders and blah, 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 all of that. If we actually can't, we can tweak them, we can fine tune them and sort of adjust, and screw on a couple of bolts here and there and so on. We can't change who they are. We can't ask them to, today it would be good if you could be somebody completely different. Could you please do that? And they would probably say yes, but they can't. You can't do it, I can't do it. It is what it is. You can't ask a chess player to all of a sudden run, a marathon. Well, you can ask him, but he won't do it because that's not who he is. So my take on this was, what if we involved more people into the process? And it goes like this. I wrote this book surrounded by, as I fancy provocative titles, as we talked about. What about a book called Surrounded by Lazy Employees? Addressing the 10% of the population who probably have some sort of managing position, let's say. Okay, that's a good target group. 10% of the people, maybe I could sell a couple of thousands a book to those people, surrounded by lazy employees, and make them say, I recognize this. I've been there. My staff is also kind of lazy-ish, I'm going to pick that book up. And then I actually stumbled onto a documentary on, I think it was on Discovery Channel, about Margaret Thatcher,
Mhm.
the Iron Lady. And we don't have to love everything Margaret Thatcher did. So please, this is not about politics to anyone who's listening or watching, but it's about a certain kind of perspective. Because when she was in for her second round, her second period as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, she went to this political advisor. And he said, last time you forgot about the unemployed. They are actually 10%. Don't forget about a lot of people. Don't forget about them. And she said, yeah, well, okay, good advice. Of course, she was smart. She went for second opinion. And the next guy said, the rest of them are 90%. And she
Mm.
won. I can't say if that was good or bad. I can only say it was an interesting thing of measuring things. So then I went back to my desk and thinking, okay, I am now addressing the managers, 10% of the population. What if I invited the rest of the crowd, all the employees of the world? So then I wrote Surrounded by Bad Bosses, trying actually to explain to everybody else, what is your manager actually trying to accomplish here? What is he or she trying to do? Why is he or she acting the way he or she is? Why is this happening? And why are they talking the way they do? And why are they so damn busy all the time? Why
Mm.
can't they just be in the bloody meeting, and not fiddling with the phone? Well, because they are super stressed. If you're stressed, trust me, they are more stressed. They just can't show it because their role is to take full responsibility. So
Mm.
they are sort of in the spotlight 24/7. They can never rest. They have to work Saturdays, Sundays. And if you don't believe me, you don't know about modern leadership. You just don't understand it. If everybody understands these processes, maybe the 90%, all of the employees in the world, maybe them in the world, going big here, right? Maybe they could sort of help their manager out, making it even easier and more possible to be led, you know. And
Mm.
if you could address your leader instead of he or she needs to, use mind reading, let's say. Yeah, I need to make more instructions to Robert. No, I think he needs some coaching. No, maybe, I don't know. Should I go red? Should I go green? I don't know. Who knows? Nobody knows. He doesn't know. Nobody knows.
Mm.
Maybe if I told you, this is what I need based on a certain model or a specific matrix or whatever, I
Yeah.
would be needing more instructions. I need something that can, keep my inspiration up.
Mm.
I feel I feel low on self-confidence this week, and it's usually related to this client, let's say. Could you give him some advice here? If I
Mm.
knew what I needed myself, I can go to the boss and say, hey, could you help me with these specifics? Instead of this just spray and pray kind of coaching, hoping everybody eats the same thing, which is never the truth.
Mm. Yeah.
That was my perspective. I think that works if you can implement that kind of that kind of well process or culture where you can talk quite openly about the leadership, because most people don't want the managing position. Some
Mm.
people do, but most people do not aim for that kind of responsibility, because in the back of their mind they know they can't cope. It looks really, really hard. It's easy to blame the stupid boss who didn't listen and he's a
Yeah.
jerk and whatever. But would you like to be in his seat? I'm not so sure. I'm not so
Mm.
sure. What do you think?
I actually think you're spot on. There's so many thoughts came to mind as you were talking about it. A conversation I had years ago with an army major came to mind, and she spoke about the idea that it's equally important to teach people how to be followers as well as teaching people how to be leaders. Because you're right, where does the responsibility sit there to kind of go, well, this is what this person's needs are. Am I going to sit here forever and wait for my boss to identify those? Or am I actually going to walk forward and say, this is what I need? And then equally so, what maybe are some of the barriers of me not doing that? And why am I not stepping forward and saying, this is what I need to my boss? Have I got fear behind that? I think the book it plays to something. It's a little bit like the old book, Women Are from Venus, Men Are from Mars. There is a little bit that if you only call it one of those things, people just pick it up. It's like if you just wrote a book around, I don't know, red energy, the people with loads of red energy would probably pick that up and go, yeah, this is me, deal with it. Whereas there's a little bit about learning about yourself through learning about others. So yeah, all those lazy employees will pick it up because it says about bad bosses. Yeah, I'm going to listen to all this, and the bad bosses pick
I
it up because
knew
of
it.
like
They
the
are so
lazy
bad. And
ones.
finally, here comes the proof. I knew it all
Exactly.
along.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Well, yeah. It doesn't have to be a mystery. That's my point. Talk about the bloody process or whatever you want to call it, bringing out in the air. And I've given lectures and workshops for thousands and thousands of people on this very topic, trying to sort of sort out, no managers in the room, just the staff,
Mm,
big groups, small groups. And I meet this quite often. I run into this. Yeah, but why should I do the job? He's paid to lead me. I'm not paid to be led by him, if you know what I mean. And I said,
mm,
well, it's your career, buddy. If you can help him or her out, why wouldn't you? Because your head will be on the line there. Your career is actually going up or down. When you are 65, when you are retiring, you can say to yourself, well, I didn't make it because I had so lousy managers all along. You can do that, but hey, that's your life.
mm,
It's a really silly notion. I don't support that at all. Take responsibility. Help them to help you. It sounds so. It sounds very simple. I understand that, and it's not an easy thing to achieve. But I still think it's important. Talk to each other. Find a good reason to sort of open it up. And of course, a lot of managers won't do that. Bad leaders won't open it up. They will try to sort of keep the secrets to themselves, and micromanaging people behind their backs and writing reports, and
mm,
and giving them impossible to understand feedback and so on, and run the blame game and all of those things. Of course, they won't. But those are the 10% at the bottom, or 20% at the bottom. As I
mm,
said, kick them out,
mm,
throw them away. We can't have those people. They affect too many people in a really bad way. I mean, very few places in the world still where you can actually yell at people, raise your voice, and start yelling at them. Still, here and there you can do that, but it's getting less and less common that you actually can do it. So you need to figure it out.
yeah.
Whoever is listening, we need to figure it out.
Mm,
Share your views. I'm not saying, because that would be a bad thing. I'm not saying go tell your staff, oh, I'm so stressed out, oh, I don't know what to do. That's not what I'm saying, because then you show weakness, and that's not very helpful, actually.
mm,
That doesn't build respect. If you show weakness, they need you to be strong. They
mm,
need you to be, a role model. even if you're under pressure in the organization, the leader needs to stand firmly in front of people. So don't open up your heart and tell people my emotions are overwhelming me or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. Just saying, in order to help you, what do you need from me?
Mm.
How can I serve you so you can serve our clients or our customers or the market or whatever you want to call it?
Mm.
Uh,
I think just opening this
that's
conversation about those different energies that the teams I've worked with, when they do these surveys and they get their kind of color profiles and then they look at each other, they have conversations. I think crucially something you said earlier on about how that their perspective is each other sometimes materialize from those. You hear things like, "Oh, so that's why you do that like that. Oh, oh, and that's why you say that sometimes. Oh, I thought you said that because of this. Or when you said that, I thought you actually were saying this." And you suddenly start to see outside of the everyday work context, a few barriers start to come down where that understanding, and I think that's what we're playing to with that book title. People are starting to understand what they need to learn about themselves and understand themselves more through actually taking the time to understand others a little bit.
Exactly. I mean, communication happens on the receiver's terms. People
Mm,
hear what they hear and they see what they see, and they will, your message, regardless of how fantastic and great it might be, when your message is filtered through layers of years, experiences, educations, uh, previous occupations, and whatever happened to you in your life, and opinions, attitudes, uh, biases, prejudice, whatever, what comes out will come out. That is just the way it is. You can't really change that. You can only be as clear as possible. Red people don't have to work on their clarity. Yellow people need to work on their clarity. Green people need to work on their clarity. A lot, well, let's say a lot of blue people should actually work on their clarity, performance, let's call it, because they use too many words and go too much into detail. The only people who will be easy to understand are the red types.
mm,
Sometimes you need your boss to say, this is what it is about. Do this,
mm,
don't do that. And as I said before, sometimes this is exactly what we need. It gives us, oh, wow, I'm so happy someone is taking the lead because I was confused.
yeah.
And sometimes that is just too much.
Mm,
Don't tell me what to do, God damn it.
yeah.
Sorry, technical term. I know what to do. I'm an experienced coworker. I have this. I have it down. Don't tell me what to do. What I need to know is, what do you expect from me within the next period of time? So
Mm,
again, my own development circle, let's say, when it comes to motivation, self-confidence, skills sets, whatever, also comes in, because sometimes you accept to be directed and sometimes you just hate it. It could be the same week, and I am the same person, and my boss, you are the same person, and sometimes I accept it, but sometimes I just hate it because this is a different task.
mm,
Here I am confused. I am not confused over there. So if you don't pay attention, this is my real experience. I'm good at this, but I'm a I'm a beginner over there. So here I
yeah.
need instructions, but shut up over there. I mean, so many dimensions. Again, there is no such thing as a good leader.
Mm. Yeah, I love all of
You,
that. I
you
think,
need to you need to pay attention. Flexibility is probably the only thing that I would say will help you out, because you need such a broad variety of things. I mean,
mm,
just take a look at history. There's probably the world leaders. There's probably one world leader that people on every continent would accept to be called a really strong and powerful leader. Do you know
mhm.
who that is?
Currently in power?
No,
Oh,
unfortunately dead. I would say Nelson Mandela,
right, okay.
South
Yeah.
Africa. Not red at all, actually. Spent
Mm,
27 years of his life in prison because his
mm,
beliefs, apartheid, and all those horrible things. Came out, got elected, and respected.
mm,
Not saying he was perfect, but most people will say, yes, he was actually a good leader, actually. But could you name another one? Well respected all over the planet, on all continents, on all, from left to right politically and everything.
mm,
It's really hard to find them. You can
very.
say John F. Kennedy. Well, not if you ask the Russians.
No.
They wouldn't cope with him at all. Americans are impressed, sure.
Mm,
But he was also a defined psychopath, Actually, yes, that is also the truth.
I
People
didn't know
don't know
that.
this. John F. Kennedy was the highest. There's a British psychologist called Kevin Dutton
Mm.
who done extensive research on American presidents, and John F. Kennedy scored the highest on a certain kind of assessment when it came to psychopathy. The second one was Bill Clinton.
That makes more sense.
Makes more sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But still charming, witty,
Yeah,
good looking.
yeah, yeah.
If we had, Kennedy, he had his affairs, and he did a lot of stupid stuff. Really risk-taking, the Cuban crisis and everything.
Mm.
Never mind. I'm
But it's
straying away.
interesting.
I
But it's
understand it.
interesting what you said about Nelson Mandela because the BBC did a study, and it was about 5 years ago. But it was looking back at the previous 100 years. They said, who do you think the most influential leader is of the 20th century? And it came down to the final four, and Nelson Mandela was in that final four, as was Margaret Thatcher, who you've already mentioned, Winston Churchill, and Roosevelt, FDR. And then the
FDR,
public,
yes.
the public vote, if you like, then happened, and it was Mandela
Was
that
Mandela?
won it.
Ah,
It was
excellent,
Mandela. And
excellent.
it's really interesting. And I use this as an exercise sometimes to kind of go, well, what is it? Why have we voted for him? And it is these things, these traits again. It's the things we see about them. There's the things we think we value, the things we've heard, because very few people who voted in that survey, bear in mind, it was, yeah, about 6 years ago, would have been in their, I would say, adult phase of their life when all four of those people were in power in any sort of leadership capacity. So what are you making those judgments on? Mandela most recently,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you kind of go back and go, well, what the things you've heard about Thatcher has got her to the top four, as opposed to what you actually experienced about Margaret Thatcher, which is, that hearsay of what makes a great leader, I think is important.
Yeah. I remember Thatcher very well, and as I said, I'm not sure. It's easy to sort of get lost in politics here and think, oh, she was too right wing and too hard, and the Iron Lady and all of those things. And I can understand why people might criticize her, and some people are trying to bring Churchill down, calling him this and that, and that might be true. Still, for me, he was kind of a hero because without him, who knows where you and
Mm,
I would be sitting today.
mm,
Nobody knows that. So that's sort of the chaos theory in practice, I would say. But regardless, it was another time. He would probably not be able to act the way he did nowadays and so on. But still, I think what makes Mandela a winner. This is just a personal theory. I'd never met the man. Obviously, I didn't. But I think he was sort of sending out sort of a humbleness. Humbleness, is that a word? Humbleness.
mhm,
He was actually acting in a humble way, not bam 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 banging on the drums, not bombastic or anything. It was very non-Trump-ish, if you know what I mean. uh,
mm.
Trump, by the way, scored lower than Hillary Clinton, if you might be interested in that.
In the psychopath test.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You can read about it in my book Surrounded by Psychopaths for everyone who's interested. I was a bit shocked about those news, but still, Mandela, yeah, humbleness and not putting yourself in the center of things. People appreciate that. People
Yeah.
think that's really good. But then again, he got into scandals and Winnie Mandela and who knows what happened, and then he died, and there was a power struggle and all that. So he
Mm,
didn't he didn't he didn't create good successors, let's say.
yeah.
He kind of missed it, but he spent 27 years in prison.
Mm,
Wow, could you imagine what would that do to anyone?
yeah.
And still serving your country afterwards until you die. I mean, the ethics of such a man, of course, it's impressive. Could you name anyone in that category today, sitting
No.
present in a presidential seat or prime minister or
No.
anyway, and anyone? I can't come up with anyone with that kind of,
Well, interesting. I think
well, let's say ethics, let's call it.
during the pandemic, I mean, at no point would I compare the two because of what Mandela is and what he stood for. Um, but that humbleness that you spoke about, that really got a lot of global attention on Jacinda Ardern New Zealand, the New Zealand Prime Minister at the time during the pandemic. And I think there was a lot of that that came through, that people were really impressed by her kind of gentle tone, her kind of family orientated values, the fact that she would do videos or interviews sat in the study with her kids there going, well, I am a mum. Deal with it. I'm not locking these things, these kids away to show I'm a leader. This is what being a person is. Now that got her a lot of plaudits quite widely around the world, of being an example of what a leader is. But at the same time, I also think the opinions of people like the British press, for example, if that type of leader was in Britain, they would be completely destroying their professionality and going, hang on a minute, no, you need to put the kids away while you're leading the country. Forget about all that.
We're not interested in your kids. God damn it. We need you to, step up a little bit. It would work in Sweden because Sweden and New Zealand and Australia and Canada is a little bit similar when it comes to these kind of, and I guess it's a cultural thing in a way. I guess for us,
Mm,
it's okay to find your prime minister in his socks at his, in the kitchen drinking coffee and looking confused. It's okay. It shows it's a human being. I guess that
mm,
has some sort of value, but still, we could be impressed. Yes, it's a human. She's like us. He's like me. Oh, I can mirror myself in this political leader with all this power
mm,
and all these men and women and so on. But at the same token, is this what I want? Is
mm,
this someone to look up to? Is this the role model, the leader of a country, of a nation, or a huge corporation or a big organization, as as let's say weak and scared and confused as the rest of us? Is this a leader? I don't know. A lot of people will say, scrap that. Let's say Putin showed himself, confused.
mm,
Not that Russia has ever experienced democracy. That's also a strange thing. People talk about the Russian democracy. I don't know what they're up to because there is no such thing. Has never been no such. He is a powerful man. That's what they respect in Russia. I'm not
mm,
saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm only saying this openness and this homeschooling, showing myself in my t-shirt kind of attitude. It resonates with some people, but at the end of the day, when the things are getting heated up a little bit, is this who I should trust in a battle, in a combat? Do I rather need someone who is, sending out powerful signals? I
mm,
got this. You can trust me.
mm.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be
And
hell of
there's
a
that
ride, but
dialing up,
you can trust me.
that
Let's do
dialing
this.
up.
I need you and you and you, but
Mm,
I'm with you. But bam, I'm gonna work 18 hours a day.
yeah.
I'm not going to get my kids at kindergarten. I have a husband to do that. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm only saying we need to we need to consider these things also because I want my leader to be a leader. The leader is sort of a little bit more than I am. Otherwise, I could
Mm,
be the leader, right?
mm,
If you show too much weakness, uh, it doesn't feel comfortable. Same thing
mm,
with the CEO in a company, big or small. If he talks about his divorce, on a conference or at the Christmas party after a couple of beers, ooh, we don't want to see that,
mm,
or do we? I don't think so. I want to hear him say, "Yeah, it's tough for me and my boys, but I'm going to manage it. Never mind. Don't. He's got buddies elsewhere. He's
mhm,
got brothers and sisters and family. He's got friends. Don't come to your staff asking for comfort in that aspect. That's my firm
mm.
belief. Don't be personal, but don't be private. We don't want to see that. It makes us confused. Are you the
Yeah.
leader? Who are you really? I know you're a human being, but are you a leader?
Mm.
You
And
know?
again, it's in the eye of the beholder, I think, a little bit again, because like I say, I think lots of people looked at Jacinda Ardern in that period as as a role model. But you're quite right. Then, if something more serious happened, and I guess we don't know because if suddenly World War III started whilst Jacinda Ardern was in charge in New Zealand, how she would have changed, and to your point, turned on different energies or dialed up different aspects of that leadership. It may well have happened. But I
Flexibility.
think.
Maybe she was flexible enough. Maybe I have no idea. I didn't know about this example,
Mm.
so it's new for me. So
But I
so
think it's interesting, the fact that we classify this stuff as energy is really interesting to me. That I think that you can dial up and you can turn on these different energies. I naturally have lots of I would say blue then green energy naturally for me. That's how I kind of recognize myself. Whereas others would very much put me in as having lots of yellow energy with some green and not so much blue energy. And I think that's really interesting to me because I've done so much reading and so much research on this sort of stuff. I'm quite comfortable with that and I understand the reasons why. And I also understand that I can dial those things up, but because it's energy, it saps me of that energy. So going into that more yellow state, I love it. I enjoy it. I'm good at it, but it also tires me out. Whereas
of
there are
course it
some
does
other
because
people
it's
they love it and it actually gives them energy.
exactly, and sometimes that is actually what they need. But the problem here, Rob, is, and you pointed it out so beautifully, it will drain you. The thing is this, I mean, there are a lot of psychology studies that says, I mean, let's say if you use the four color system
Mm,
as a starting point, you have a natural style, as you and I know, something that is kind of natural when you don't have to adapt to any situation, when you don't have to pretend or play a role or fill somebody else's shoes. You can just be you. Okay,
mm,
excellent. Okay, then you have the adapted style, which is the mask that you put on top of everything else, where you try to act the way you think you have to act in a specific situation. Meaning, at work, it might be one mask. At home with your in-laws, it might be another mask, probably another mask, because that would be intelligent. With your kids, a third one, but it's not really you. The point is the following, and we know this based on quite extensive research. We know if you stray too far away, if this is the true you, and you stray too far away, trying to fit in any kind of situation, and you try to be someone that you actually are not, and you go exactly in the opposite direction. If you're blue and trying to be yellow, as you said, it's going to be draining. You can do that for a while, but you can't do it constantly
mm,
over time. A yellow person will never be blue for more than, I don't know, 20 minutes
mm,
reading the Excel sheet that to completely exhaust them. It's just the way it is. That's my point I was trying to make before. We can't change people too much. We have to accept who they really are and try to put them in positions where they can be as much of themselves as possible. Not saying you shouldn't develop yourself and building good habits and all of those things, building skills. That's not what I'm saying. But when it comes to your natural personality, your natural behavioral style, which stems from
mhm,
your personality will not change as an adult. It will not change. You will add a couple of things and maybe you get rid of a couple of other things. But your personality is rooted in your soul. It's in your DNA, it's in your heart. You can't change that without getting actually physical stress related diseases. You will be sick if you violate your personality.
mm,
That is just the way it is. Don't do it. I wouldn't recommend it. If you want to be really super red and really show power and everything, but you are totally green, you can pretend, but they will see through it and you will feel really, really lousy about yourself. You will play a role. It would be a lie. You
mm.
will be a walking lie. And that's not good leadership. It just isn't.
No.
It's a
Well, I love that.
conundrum. There's no way around this, actually, I would say.
Well, I think one of my favourite parts of your the book, the Bad Bosses book, was this idea of you used the notion of different containers to talk about tolerance levels, and I absolutely loved it, and it resonates whenever I talk about it to anyone else. And that green energy of storing this stuff in it, storing everything up in like a barrel and carrying it around, and then eventually one day that barrel is probably just going to explode and break and all that sort of stuff. Whereas what makes the red energy be red is the shot glass. It's more the idea that it can fill up and empty almost in the blink of an eyelid, faster than you'll see it filling up. So you can if you, I mean, I can't recommend the book enough, really. It's fantastic, but you can start to recognize in yourself if you go through this process, not to get labeled necessarily, but just as a vehicle to start to understand yourself and others. It's really fantastic. So I think, if anyone out there is looking for just a way into it, I'll put links. I'll probably just put links to your Amazon store to start with, and I'll put some links directly to the books as well, because something Surrounded by Idiots is a fantastic starting point for anyone on this.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank
No
you for
worries.
the kind words.
If anyone would love to follow your work and follow yourself out there in the wide world, what's the best way they can follow you?
Probably you put Surrounded by Idiots in the search bar and you can't miss me.
Just
I'm on
hit
Instagram,
return.
TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook. I have a webpage called surroundedbyidiots.com, and you will find me there.
Good
So
stuff.
if anyone wants to reach out, there's a contact form there. Please reach out, tell me whatever you want, ask questions. I'll try to answer everything personally. It comes quite a lot there, but I spend some hours each week to sort of help people out if I can. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Love it. And next on my reading list is Surrounded by Psychopaths. After what you've been talking about today, I'm going to be taking a look. I actually listen to them on Audible. I just love it while I'm driving, listening to it. It's fantastic.
We call it the Black Book at home. It's the Black Book.
The Black Book. Oh, the darker book.
The Black Book. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, I can see it just over there. Yeah, in the table. The title for the show, then, based on what we've been talking about, where does your mind immediately jump to anything? The title for this episode.
Why there is no such thing as why it's impossible to define what a good leader, what a great leader actually should be like. Something like that. You seem like a creative person. You could probably, that's maybe where we end up here. Why it's so hard to define this is the best leadership? Because again, who knows really?
Well, I actually wrote down the word flexible idiots before. Be flexible idiots.
Flexibility, well, sure. I think the problem is bigger than that, but still, it's helpful. Absolutely so. Yeah.
So we'll go over the thing. So rather like that flexible idea, possibly that how to define a great leader.
Why not?
Cool. Good stuff. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Thomas, for your time and for joining me on the episode today. It's been fantastic. I've loved speaking to you. Thank you so much. I will put for those listening, I will put the links I've promised in the show notes as well. So please go out there and follow some more of Thomas's work and let me know what you think. On that note, thank you very much, Thomas. Have a great day, and I will speak to you again, hopefully.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye now. Well, that's it for this episode of the Leadership Untitled podcast, and this episode is called Defining Great Leadership, with an honorary call out to flexible idiots. I'd like to thank you for listening today and downloading the episode from wherever you're listening, and also directly to Thomas for joining me in this conversation today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope to speak to you again at some point. And for the future episodes, please make sure you like or follow or subscribe to the series on your podcast streamer of choice, and I will speak to you soon. Bye now.